Brant Wuthering Waves may be stronger than you think, and today I aim to tell you why that is. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. For starters, this guy has an absolutely packed kit. The dude's a jack of all trades, not just when it comes to his theatrical antics, but also when it comes to his kit. He does a lot of things, and he does them all well. First off, he does damage, and a pretty decent amount of it. You're gonna get the main meat of his kit out of his Forte skill, which honestly does a pretty decent chunk of damage if you build him well. Of course, that's not to undersell how his Pirate Lad's normal attacks are also capable of dealing a solid amount of damage. It's not the main meat of his kit, but it's certainly a nice side trimming. But of course, that isn't even the climax of the show! No, not at all. He has plenty more that he can offer, such as his healing and shielding. That's right, not only is he a really solid sub-DPS, but he's able to act as a source of sustenance for your team. Now, honestly speaking, the healing isn't going to matter much unless you have chronic skill issue, especially when you consider that you should still be using a third slot healer teammate in your comps, even if you have Brant in there, because more often than not, they feature additional buffs that you really want to take advantage of. For instance, Shorekeeper's crit buffs. But with that being said, it's still pretty handy to have around. And his shielding? Once again, it's a really nice piece of quality of life, and it can prevent you from getting one shot in scenarios where you typically would. The guy also features some very lucrative buffs in his outro skill. That's right, the dude provides you with skill percent and future percent on outro. Skill percent is a really valuable buff to provide, especially when you consider that we have some really strong DPSs that utilize it. For example, the esteemed Montelli Lady Carlotta, or even the Jinjo Magistrate Jinchi. He's able to work as an absolutely excellent alternative second slot teammate for both of these characters, which is relevant when you consider vigor management. E.g., you want to use Silly Paint or Jojo with your Carlotta. So then, if you don't have a Yinlin or Cantarella on hand, you can stick your Brant Wuthering Waves with Jinchi. This applies to basically any main DPS that utilizes skill percent as the main meat of their kit. They can appreciate Brant Wuthering Waves as their second slot teammate. And his fusion percent buffs lend him to being a really solid second slot teammate for fusion DPSs. Need to free up your Sanhua? Then you can use Brant quite effectively with Encore. Or you can even use him as a strong teammate alongside Chishia. But then, you consider this, skill percent and future percent. Who is that perfect for? That's right, everybody's favorite lovely Phoenix lady, Chang Li. I'll touch on his wide array of synergies in a moment. But for now, just acknowledge that Brant is able to offer you all of these different abilities, and all of these abilities are of good quality. And he has a definitive best-in-slot use case to work with. So he quite frankly gets the best of both worlds. He has a definitive team in which you do want to use him, yet he still ends up being very effectively versatile across many teams. I highlight effectively versatile because I do believe that you would realistically use Brant in these situations. It's not a case of, oh yeah, he can work in these situations. No, he is good in these situations. And to elaborate more on his synergies, let's talk a little bit more about his best-in-slot use case with Chang Li. You see, the Phoenix Lady is very strong, but she's only very strong if you're able to utilize her correctly, because she is very, very difficult to fully take advantage of. This is because her best-in-slot use case is Quick Swap, a playstyle archetype that is generally characterized by very fast inputs. You always want to be using Chang Li's abilities whenever the other character is doing a long animation. However, because of the existence of everybody's favorite Brant Wuthering Waves, you're able to use her more like a traditional hypercarry, because the buffs that Brant provides on outro make it worth doing so. However, if you're a good enough player, then yes, you can still quick swap within this team. Meaning that not only does he effectively lower the bar to entry when it comes to playing Chang Li effectively, but he still leaves the opportunity open to engage in more difficult gameplay. I'm telling you man, this character truly is the best of all worlds. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that if you're somebody that struggles in Whimpering Wastes, you can always separate your Brant and Chang Li. Have both on either half. Chang Li is better in this game mode than Brant, however, he's still quite formidable here. He'll certainly get quite a lot of good work done. Plus, another more niche use case that I'd like to point out is that you're able to pair him with Sanhua and play him more as a main DPS. I would like to say this isn't exactly optimal, but it still works. And yes, it does in fact clear. However, I will add, you do preferably want a signature weapon if you intend to play him as a main DPS. Nevertheless, it's still a fun little thing that you can do. You're simply just gonna get a lot of kilometerage out of him. He doesn't really feel cope anywhere. I found him to feel comfortable in basically any team that I've ever played him in. And as a long-term fan of the Phoenix Lady, I have to say, Brant was an absolute blessing. I'm gonna be honest, my Chang Li and Brant team is always my go-to when it comes to difficult content. Holograms, new TOA resets, new WiWa resets, whatever it is, these two are my prime choices when it comes to taking on whatever Wuthering Waves throws my way. And that actually leads into my next point. Brant Wuthering Waves is amazing in all game modes. He's absolutely sublime in TOA. Like I said, He's able to substitute for many second slot teammates, which means you can easily play him in a wide variety of very good TOA teams, and he himself does really solid personal damage. And most of the time, I honestly find this guy depleting quite a large chunk of the boss's HP bar, because his forte skill is quite the nuke, my guy. His mobility is incredible in general, so I really don't have any issue when it comes to fighting enemies that move around a lot, such as Thundering Mephis, since he chases after them anyway, and I have to say, there is nothing more satisfying than hearing the parry sound effect whenever you're doing his normal attack spins. He can easily take down one enemy, or many enemies, it doesn't matter. He's fantastic in both scenarios. And in Whimpering Wastes, if you've built your Brant well enough, his normal attacks are able to take out individual enemy waves, which makes him absolutely excellent there. Because as we all know, the key to being a good wuwa character is being able to mow down waves quickly, and Brant's normal attacks are perfectly suited to taking down all of these enemy Wuthering Waves. Because while his normal attacks aren't exactly his main damage share, they're still substantial enough to be able to easily take out wuwa's trash mobs. And of course, as you'd expect, his forte skill nukes any enemy that dares to stand in his way. I will say there are characters that are inherently better at wuwa than him, such as Gion, Camellia, and Changli. But look at that, Changli. He plays amazingly with her. But even without Changli, he's still very competent in this game mode. And like I already said, if you're strapped for options, you can always just separate them and use them on either half. So your wuwa is going to be excellently covered. And then there's holograms. I personally think he's amazing here. He is my go-to anytime I want to take on a hologram. Because he heals naturally during his usual rotations, you're going to be able to restore whatever HP you lost in case a hologram hits you. Now most of the time, yes, holograms will one-shot you, but there are also cases where instead of getting one-shot, you'll just be drained down to a very low amount of HP. He's able to passively recover that, thus meaning you can take more hits throughout one long hologram fight. His shields have also been a great comfort to me many times. Easily my favorite character to fight difficult content with. So no matter what game mode it is that you're struggling with, Brant is going to be able to help you. Dare I say, he is going to help you weather those waves. So that also naturally helps out his pull value in my opinion. And of course, we have to talk about his overworld comfort, because oh my freaking goodness. I never expected that Kuro Games would ever make another character with overworld prowess as high as Changli. Yes, that's right. I consider Brant Wuthering Waves to be just as good of an overworld character as Changli, and that is quite the statement considering how good the Phoenix Lady is when it comes to overworld convenience. Very often, I'll find myself launching into Brant, doing his normal attacks, doing his forte skill, and then I'm done. I basically never even have to swap into Changli half the time. Much like the Phoenix Lady, he is perfectly capable of dealing with overworld encounters on his own. And because he builds such a frick ton of VR, you're gonna end up having his ult up basically all the time, even after small enemy encounters, at least in my experience. Brant is another case of a character that I consider to be one of my mains, literally just because I use him so much. I basically never play this game anymore without having the guy in my team, and I know that the overworld isn't exactly endgame content. However, I still felt like this was important to mention, considering how exceptionally good he is in the overworld, and also considering that exploration is a very large part of Wuthering Waves' content. Another point that I'd like to mention in regards to his general comfort is that he is very hard to mess up. Like, this guy's playstyle is very simple. You use his ult, you normal attack away, and then whenever your forte is full, it's anchors away, and then you are literally done. His gameplay is literally foolproof, which is a little bit strange when you consider that he's a part of the Fool's Troop, but you get the idea. So literally anybody under the sun can access the full extent of Brant's value. However, there is a massive elephant in the room that we must discuss. A suspiciously unflickering Valour-shaped elephant in the room. That's right, he does really want his signature weapon. Now I will say, he doesn't need his signature. You can still use him without it, but I will say, his performance is greatly inhibited without it. The main thing that suffers is his damage, because it becomes very difficult to reach the 250 ER requirement from Tidebreaking Courage without Unflickering Valour. His signature weapon is so specifically tailored to his kit, and Overture, it's just significantly weaker than his signature dude. It is one of the largest signature to 4-star weapon gaps that exist in the entire game. Sure, yes, it is normal for a Wuthering Waves 5-star to really want their signature weapon. However, Brant easily wants it the most. I will throw in, you can stick him on an Emerald of Genesis and stick him on the classic 5-piece fusion set, and he will still effectively aid you in clearing the TOA. But it is undeniable that his damage takes a really big hit. Ideally, you do want to pull Brant with his signature weapon. It's a bit of a package deal. I will say that S0R0 is fine if you're a Changli main, because his outro skill buffs alone are worth it in my opinion. But unless you're a regular planner of convention, then I wouldn't really go for an S0R0 Brant. that R1 does make a world of a difference. And another thing, this could just be my skill issue, but holy interruption! It is very annoying whenever his anchor gets interrupted. Yep, that's right, whenever you use his forte skill, he can straight up just get interrupted and not do it, thus meaning you either reset, or you just take a huge hit to your overall damage. Considering how much of his damage share is behind that forte skill, it is very annoying when he gets interrupted. I mean, I don't really think it's a total deal breaker in my opinion, because you can just reset, but I will not lie, it is annoying when it happens. And let's not even delve into whenever his anchor misses. Thankfully, that doesn't really happen that often, but when it does, oh, I am ready to throw hands. On the whole, I think that Brant Wuthering Waves is a very valuable 5-star unit. Sure, he is going to be running alongside some very valuable meta characters, but I will say that if you manage to invest into him and get his weapon, you won't regret it. Personally, he's become an absolute staple on my account, and I 1000% recommend him if you're a big fan of the Phoenix Lady. Genuinely one of my favorite pastimes on Wuthering Waves is just taking Brant and Changli, only those two, no third slot teammate, and seeing how I can do in the TOA. And clearing 3 stars with only those two feels amazing every single time. Just keep in mind that he does really want a signature weapon, and that his banner is going to be happening at the same time as Carlotta's first rerun. You know, one of the best DPSs in the game. So I would look at the other banner options such as Carlotta and Jinshi before deciding whether you want to get Brant or not. But if you have all of your meta teams covered, then I really don't see how Brant would be a bad addition to your account. Have I managed to sell you on Brant, or have you been sold on him ever since he released? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week, every week on Saturdays, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so that we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some more fun stuff together. Hopefully this video is able to tell you why you shouldn't underestimate Brant Wuthering Waves. This has been Juice, signing out. And dude, you should be pulling him for his English voice alone. Let the flames rise! Ha 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 ha! Climax of the show! Pew pew!